New Gambia platform, our weekly civic education and global issue talk show. Today is March 28, 2021. Yeah, we have our guest in the house today, Gayso, my former classmate, Armitage High School, a veteran lawyer, and one of the a few Gambians that inspired a lot of people in the areas of law. So, Gay, we're proud of all your accomplishment in your work at CRC, being also part of the authors of the Constitution. Wonderful. Welcome to the show, Jay. And we have Alice, my co-host. Alice, welcome. Thank you, guys.
Okay.
So, Gay, you have the floor. Can you just give us a brief overview of, the areas that we want to concentrate on? That is the draft constitution, your take on it, and also the freedom of speech, expression, and assembly, how it is approached in a democratic society, and then what are the lines that citizens have to take, what are their rights, and then how it should be practiced. I'm not saying in Africa, but in a democratic setting. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sawane. Like you said, so you and I have known each other for like 36 years. All of a sudden, it makes it look like we're like old. Yeah. But I'm very happy to be here, and I'm also happy. This conversation is really not just about law generally, but about specific issues you wanted me to address: freedom of speech, expression, and of course, freedom of association, assembly. Just wanted to say, people, some of us would say freedom of expression, freedom of speech, different names. Just wanted to give a bit of history before I get to where we are in our country, in the Gambia 1997 Constitution, how freedom of assembly, association, speech guaranteed, and maybe what the shortcomings are and how we tried addressing those shortcomings in the draft Constitution. I was fortunate enough to be part of, 11 people who were tasked with the responsibility of drafting a new constitution for the Gambia. I'll try to address the new things brought in by the draft. And of course, at the end of the day, your audience should be able to make up their minds as to whether we have seen improvements.
If you can share I'm going to share the show links with you. If you can share it with your audience, I'm pretty sure, your network, they would love to hear this.
That's fine. That's no problem. Yeah. But I just wanted to emphasize from the get-go that, the right to freedom of speech expression is extremely, extremely important. In all countries of the world where we feel we have a democracy, where there are democracies, people would always say, fourth estate is the press. But this is not just about the press. It's about the right of every individual, every human, to freely express himself, freely express herself. But freedom of speech expression isn't just about you expressing yourself. It's also about you having the right to receive information, to impart knowledge. So it's extremely important. And I know before we came on live, I was trying to emphasize how important this particular right is, which is why, in fact, when the UN met for the first time, after it was set up in 1945, that was actually before the Universal Declaration was adopted in 1948. They call it Resolution 59/1, which made it clear at the time, 1946, before the Universal Declaration of Human Rights everybody talks about, the UN made it clear, freedom of information is fundamental. Not only is it fundamental, it is the cornerstone of any democratic society. You can't go to any country that calls itself democratic, where people don't have a right to express themselves, where people don't have a right to share views, to speak freely. So it's extremely, extremely, extremely important. We really cannot afford to, I can't say enough about how important it really is. But what do we have on the Gambian law? If you look at the 1997 Constitution of the Gambia, particularly, I mean, the Constitution your listeners can get online, Constitution of the Gambia, you Google it, you would get the whole. And I'm going to refer your listeners to Section 25. Section 25 provides the first paragraph of it. The way I'll talk about that later, but the way freedom, all these things are provided for in the 97 Constitution, not the best, because if you look at the 1997 Constitution, you look at Section 25, it provides for a host of rights. In the same Section 25, you have freedom of speech, expression, you have right to freedom of movement, assembly, association. So we're talking about 5 fundamental human rights grouped in one section. And here is if you look at the 95 Constitution, it's really not just about the right we have to express ourselves, to receive information. It goes on also to talk about the right we have to academic freedom. For those of us who are academics, the right to express yourself without getting arrested in the middle of the night. So that is provided for in the 1997 Constitution. And in addition to that, the 97 Constitution in Section 25 also talks about the right all Gambians have to petition the executive, meaning if you have an issue which you feel nobody in the Gambia is listening to you, you have a right to petition the executive, in this case, the president directly. Unfortunately, in the past, or under the former regime, a few people did that. And instead of going on to listen to what their complaint was, they ended up getting arrested, getting prosecuted, getting charged with giving false information to a public officer, which was actually big. So here, again, in a sense, I would just finish my introduction, and of course, you guys I'll be happy to respond to all your questions. In addition to that, if you look at the same Section 25, you would see the right to freedom of expression, assembly, association. Association is like your right to join an association, which could be a compin, like we say in our local languages, or your right to assemble, hold meetings, all that in Section 25. You also would see those rights are not made absolute in the sense, while you have the prohibition of torture, absolute, meaning you can never be tortured, irrespective of the situation, the circumstances. On the freedom of expression, we have public order, public morality, public health, public safety, public good. If you look at 25, you would see your right to freedom of expression wouldn't mean you have a right to say anything. If it is going to damage our democracy, affect our public health, our morality, the government can at least find ways of putting a stop to that. That is what you have in the 1997 Constitution. And again, if you look at the 1997 Constitution, specifically, I'm talking about sections 207 to 210, they provide specifically for the media, as in saying the public broadcaster, which in this case is GRTS, has to be independent, in blah, blah, very beautifully stated, but no enforcement mechanism is indicated. So we looked at it. When we were working on the draft constitution, we felt freedom of speech, freedom of expression is so important enough to be covered in a separate section, not put in a paragraph. So that's why if you look at the draft, we had a separate section specifically on the right to freedom of expression, freedom of speech, covered, not lumped together with the other rights I talked about. Not only did we do that, like I said earlier, the 97 Constitution talks about the media. What we tried doing, we tried changing that to make whatever we talked about in the 97 Constitution with respect to the media, we tried from making them general to reducing them to rights. Reducing them to rights, meaning if they are violated, you as an individual could go to court and seek redress. That is why freedom of the media, we have covered as fundamental rights, freedom of expression covered separately. In addition to that, in the draft constitution, we had a separate section on your right to access information. At the end of the day, we don't have any right to access information in our country. Like you want information from the National Assembly. If the draft was passed, the National Assembly wouldn't be able to stop you from getting that information for as long as this is something that should be in the public domain, not just the National Assembly, the executive, any public institution. So in a sense, what I'm trying to say, we had it covered in a broader way in the draft. In addition to that, anything to do with the media, instead of covering them generally, we had them specifically covered as rights, meaning if GRTS, for example, is discriminating between the ruling party, the opposition parties, you as a Gambian would, if the draft constitution was to pass, would have a right to go to court to make sure that was corrected. And very importantly too, we also included provisions specifically providing for your right to access information. It's one thing to have a right to express yourself. It's also important to have a right to speak, free speech. But what good is that right if you don't have a right to access the information you, in some instances, would need to express yourself? So that's why for the first time in our history, we decided to constitutionalize that particular right. By constitutionalize, you see me raising my hand, as in upgrading it to the level of the Constitution. It wouldn't be about anybody with the executive, the legislature, or the judiciary doing you a favor. Our Constitution says, as gay so from a small village in Lower Salem, I have a right to access information that's in the public domain. I don't need favors from you. I don't need to beg you. I want you to give me that information. And at the end of the day, because we made it a provision of the Constitution, you really wouldn't have to run around beg. So in a sense, that is where we are. You mentioned, like I said earlier, association assembly. Like I said, those lumped in one section, we had that separated after we provided for information, freedom of speech. We then went on to provide separately for freedom of association, freedom of assembly. And the question you raised, Mr. Sawane, as to permits. Under our law, as I speak to you, under the Public Order Act, before you can go on a public, in half a mile, use the right to lane.
I think
Are we still on?
Yeah. It's just that Sam is trying to come in. I think he's in his car.
Okay.
But go on.
So I'll just finish on, in a minute, I'll just to talk about the other rights. Under our law as it is, before you can go to demonstrate, even if it is a peaceful demonstration, you need to get a permit from the IGP, Inspector General of Police. Some of us have maintained, this is my right. I don't need anybody's expression to enjoy my right, to enjoy a freedom that is guaranteed under the law, which is why, as I speak to you, my office has a case against the Gambia before the African Court of, African Court on Human and People's Rights. And what we're trying to do is make the Gambia move from permission to notification, meaning if you, Mr. Sawan, or anybody else wants to go on a peaceful demonstration, peaceful, I'm emphasizing the word peaceful, you wouldn't need permission from the IGP. They can come up with a law saying, before you go on a demonstration, peaceful demonstration, you just have to notify us, give them a week. They can say, before you do so, give us a week's notice. So that within that week, within the 2 weeks, within whatever period they provide, they then would put in place all these machineries, as in making sure the place is safe, they have enough people, even if that is going to be a counter demonstration, making sure that there are enough senior security personnel to make sure there really wouldn't be any conflict. And at the end of the day, if you give them notice, they do their intelligence, they find out at the end of the day that this might not end up being peaceful. then they can use their discretion or whatever you might want to call it to say, we wouldn't want you to hold the demonstration on a particular day. We would want you to have it moved to another time when we think it is not going to cause any harm. So what we're trying to do, get our government to move from permission, as a requiring permission from the IGP, to say, just give them notice so that at the end of the day, if you go out to the streets, whatever it takes for you to embark on a peaceful demonstration would be in place. Like I said, the case is before the African Commission, and we're hoping the African Commission will decide in our favor. So these are international standards. You know, they call it moving from permission to notification, which is what we're trying to do in this case. So it is important for people to express themselves, speech, but of course, if you look at the draft constitution, we made it clear that can never amount to hate speech. Pitching one ethnic group against another, pitching one religion against another. Those guarantees are provided for in the draft constitution. And again, we also are saying, when we say your right to associate, putting in place CAFOs, putting in place, compings, the government shouldn't stop you for as long as it is not an association that is meant to advance, a Maninka agenda, a Wolof agenda, an Aku agenda. We also say, if you have a right, you should have a right to assemble like-minded people, having meetings to express themselves. But at the end of the day, it wouldn't mean having a meeting because you want to pitch Muslims against Christians, or because you want to pitch Wolofs against Mandinkas, or because you want to push an agenda that is selfish. So all those guarantees we made sure we provided for in the draft, because we looked at what the shortcomings were with respect to the 1997 Constitution, and we did our best to try to address that, making sure whatever we have in the draft would meet international standards. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. So. I think you have explained it already. I mean, I was not sitting in your office, but that's what I used to tell the people here all the time. When we talk about freedom of speech, freedom of expression, I say, look, I know that for many people it's something new because we're talking about democracy, and which was after Jawara no more in the Gambia. So many people they need to first understand the meaning of it. Doesn't mean that you can just wake up and try to insult people because you are free. We should not misuse it, the freedom of speech, because insulting people or things like that, that is far away from the meaning of freedom of speech. So I say we need to understand the people who are doing that, because most of them, I mean, most of the young people, for example, who are now 22, 23 years, I used to say, those people don't know democracy. It's a fact. Where? So they know it. So most of them were born in a dictatorship. So they have to first know all this freedom in a democratic state, and what to do and how to talk it and what is the meaning of it. Freedom of speech, we all have freedom of speech, but people don't insult each other because that is out of the meaning of this freedom of speech. So I think I was almost correct, but you make it clear now for our audience, then they know more about it, because a law can only be used if it is actual and standard. When it's a law, and to know all these things, I think. Thank you very much, Mr. So. That was okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if Sam has any question. I have a question on that area before we move into the situation of the draft constitution with Mr. Shaw.
Well, good morning, everyone, and good afternoon, Mr. Saul. I thank you in Gambia. So, good. Hey, Mr. Saul, I'm Sam Cisse. I'm in the U.S. I'm in Indianapolis, U.S. So, Indiana. Okay. I missed most of what you said.
I hope you're not Mike Pence's neighbor.
Which one? Mike Pence. Oh, Mike Pence. Oh. You know what? My corporate office where I work is actually where Mike Pence lives. You know, that's his hometown. Oh. So I work in that same town. So, but okay. I don't see him. So, but I'm glad they're gone, though. I'm glad they're gone. So, but anyway, so like I said, I'm sorry, apologize. I'm on a road trip with my kids. So, but anyway, I missed what you said from the beginning since I wasn't there. But one thing I do want to comment on is, first, I want to thank you guys, the National Assembly members, for, taking it to on your own, which is the right thing to do because you're the lawmakers, to make sure that our Constitution is changed to reflect what we call democracy, because the laws they had there in the 1997 Constitution, where people had to go to the Inspector General of Police to get permits for peaceful demonstrations and things like that, I think that's all really really depriving people from their rights. That should not have happened in the first place. That's why what Alice was saying too, the younger generation, the millennium, really don't know what democracy is because they were born in dictatorship. So when we change to democracy, I wish that this government really takes the opportunity to communicate very well, but unfortunately, they are not very good in communicating. They should be going out in televisions and communicating with the people that really elected them and put them in there. So I would prefer, or I would suggest that when laws are changing for the National Assembly members, I know this is something that should be in collaboration with the government to provide or to pick some people that are very knowledgeable about what is changing and can really sit and explain and answer questions, and go to national television and create programs in there for National Assembly members to tell people. This is something similar to what I said before the draft constitution was made. Same thing with the CRC, I think is the Constitutional Review Commission. When they were going out, I said this. I said before they went out to people, first, before you go ask people what is in the law, what you're going to change in the law and things like that, and ask for the suggestion, they first need to know what is in the Constitution. And most Gambians don't know that, and there's a lot of people that have not been to school in Gambia don't know what is in the Constitution. So the government should have taken that responsibility and find people that can explain what the Constitution is, what's in the Constitution, before they go out to meet people to ask them their opinion. I mean, and you don't ask me my opinion when you don't tell me what it is. I need to know what it is first, then ask my opinion, then I'll tell you my opinion. So I think that was done wrong also. So communication is very important in any administration, and that is one of the things that we are lacking in the Gambia. So, but I do want to commend you for taking the time and explaining this here, and also on your part with your team, getting laws changed to reflect democracy, true democracy. So thank you. I'll stop here for now and put my phone on mute and listen. Yep.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Civic. Can I respond?
Yes. Go ahead.
Yeah. I wanted to correct something. I'm not a parliamentarian. Like I said, was privileged enough to be part of a team of 11, as in 11 commissioners that were tasked with the responsibility of drafting a new constitution for the Gambia. I'm not a parliamentarian, and I'm not thinking of being one. But I think he raised some.
Okay, I understand.
Yeah. But you raised some very good points, and I just wanted to. What we did, and of course, all these things are documented. When we were appointed, the first thing we did was to prepare what we call the issues document. All the issues, from one to the other, were prepared and, of course, made public, made available to every Gambian who really was interested in getting a sense of what was in the Constitution and of course, what he or she might have thought should be changed. I mean, whether the issues document should have been translated in the local languages, or maybe whether we should have gone on the radio, on TV to have all the issues translated is another thing I'm sure we can talk about on a different day. But that document was prepared and it was made accessible to everybody, Gambians here abroad. And for Gambians who really couldn't read or cannot read, when we went around the country, we had 2 public consultations. There was the first before the constitution, before the draft was rolled out, and another after the first draft was rolled out. We prepared what we call talking points based on the issues document. And everywhere we went to, like if we to go to Kaul, we would have, somebody to lead on every issue, as in, do you guys want the chairperson of the IEC, Independent Electoral Commission, to be appointed by the president, or he should be appointed by parliament? What about judges? How should they be appointed? Do we have to have term limits in our constitution? All these things were raised in all the local languages. So if it was in the Phonis, even if the presenter was speaking in Mandinka, we'll make sure that it was translated into Jola. If it was in Basse, it was about asking the audience, what languages would you people prefer? They told us, and whatever we translated, whatever we said was based on what they did. And the first public consultation was meant to enlighten people as to what was in the 1997 Constitution, and then giving them a sense of what they think we should change. Should we continue to have the IEC chairperson nominated by or appointed by the president? A host of other things. So it really wasn't about the commissioners sitting in drafting what they felt was right. There was an issues document, and in the public consultation, we raised questions speaking to those issues. Do we, for example, go the US way, having running mates? That would mean getting the president, vice president elected. We did raise those questions all over the country. What about, do we have to continue giving the president the powers to appoint or to nominate National Assembly members? We went around the country, we raised all those issues. People spoke, and based on what the feedback we got from people, that's why, for example, we're in the draft able to say, or to provide for a law saying, when it comes to parliamentarians, the president should no longer have a say. Women, special election for women. Persons with disabilities, special election for them. Nothing about, the president sitting in the comfort of his office trying to appoint people. Even when it comes to vetting, I mean, do we just allow the president to appoint whatever he wants as minister and the National Assembly not having a say? So based on the feedback we got on whether we should vet, not vet, we then were able to come up with the draft we presented. Yeah. So like I said, that was the issues document. And we went around the country, spoke in all the local languages to make sure people got a sense of what the issues were. Yeah. So it wasn't about sitting in Banjul drafting. And all these things are documented. If you look at our report, which was circulated along with the draft constitution, you will see the consultations we held. And it wasn't just about public consultations. We also had what we call focus group discussions, getting women isolated so that they can openly, freely speak to us as to what their issues were. Persons with disabilities isolated, openly speak to us about what their issues were. And all the other things we tried having in mind. Yeah. So I don't know if that, but we tried in our but like we always would say in our local languages, for those of us who speak well of we tried to be as consultative as we could be. And we made sure this wasn't just concentrated to people in the urban area. We went to the forest villages in the Gambia, and we didn't speak to them in English. We spoke to them in a language that they understood. And in addition to that, we also had a survey because we wanted our findings to be as scientific as they could be. We heard people speak, but we wanted something we could rely on, which then led us to, come up with what we call, household surveys, with percentages, giving a sense. But when it comes to whether we should have term limits, we can tell you with confidence, 80% of Gambians said this. For the other one, only 15% supported it. That was why we dropped it. So we tried having that in mind before we came up with the final draft. I'm not sure whether that responded to your issues, but we tried our best. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Well,
okay, go ahead. Some follow up, then I can come.
Yeah, let me do a follow up here. First, now I understand Mr. Saul is not a National Assembly member. I thought he was part of the National Assembly, but he was part of the CRC. You were part of the commission team, right?
Yes, I was. I don't do politics.
Okay, good.
So I can't.
Well, first,
so it's a free man.
Yeah, so you guys did a great job in going out and explaining it, and based on all what you just said, also, it really made me understand what you've done. So great job on your part. I still say that the government.
I think Sam, you're having problem with signal.
Oh, really? Can you hear me? Can
you hear me now? It's getting better, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, of course, I'm driving in the middle of nowhere, so inside Tennessee. So
I know.
Yeah, in the state of Tennessee, so so signal will be bad, but I'll make it short. So, but anyway, what I wanted to say is really the part of the government. If something like a constitution need to change, I think the government should have really allotted people by allowing, I said this like a long time ago, at least 6 months on radio and television, explaining to people in the local language all the things that Mr. Saw and team did in local languages, and tell people what is in there before they get to them. You see, the difference is, if I am going to take an exam and answer questions for you, I rather know the questions ahead of time than the day of the exam. So if you come on the day of the exam and now here we are, even though we have translators that are going to tell us what is there, what are the questions, I think I would think better, and most people would respond better if they had the opportunity and the chance to hear all those on television or radio stations, especially people that have never been to school, so that they can sit in their bantabas and debate within themselves and think about it, see other people's viewpoints and opinions, and they will be more prepared to answer those questions better than the day that you guys showed up there. That's kind of like what I wanted to make sure. That was my point, that I wanted the government to do that at least 6 months ahead of time, give people the chance to think about all of those things, that issue questions that you raised, Mr. Saul, and have them think about it, debate within among themselves, and prepare, look at consequences, the pros and cons in either way of answering the question, so that the day that you show up and ask them those questions, they can say, yep, I've thought about this before, I knew about this, I thought about this, we've debated this, and here's my conclusion, this is what I think, and then speak their mind at that point. So I think that's what I was talking about more for the government to have done. So yeah, but thank you.
Can I respond to that, Sam?
Okay.
I think that's an extremely good point. But I wanted to say, of course, I don't work for government, so I can't speak on behalf of government. But I just wanted to say the Constitution is the most important document in this country, which is why our law says for you to change any part of it, I'm not even talking about the parts that are entrenched, any part of it, you need at least 100 days to do that, at least 100 days. So if it is about a provision that is entrenched, not only do you need 100 days, you need to have a referendum. So at least going back to what Mr. Sam just raised, we wouldn't just have expected, draft gazetted. So at least we would have expected whoever is responsible to start encouraging people to get into debates as to the merits or the demerits of the Constitution. Probably that might have helped, but I'm not sure that happened. But, I wouldn't be honest if I just say that is, you only have the government to blame. At the end of the day, what about civil society? What about all the stakeholders? Why is it after there was the first, the gazette? I mean, you know, the law says you have to gazette, wait for 3 months, and then another 10 days before the National Assembly can have a debate. Why didn't this platform? I'm not sure this platform was in existence around the time. I mean, all the online stations, all the civil society organizations, why didn't we have a debate as to what is actually in the draft so that by the time it got to the National Assembly, all of our people would have been involved? I think there were a few mistakes made here and there, and I wouldn't attribute all of it to just government. We can't just sit in the corners of our room expecting government to do everything for us. All of us had a role to play, and I'm not sure we did. So, so very important question, but I would say we did not discuss the issues enough after the draft was presented, because we had more than 100 days, which is like more than 3 months, to look into the merits, and I'm not sure we did that. Okay. So that I think is an issue.
Here on the platform, because we've been discussing about it, I know that. But the platform is not the whole Gambia. And sometimes many people follow up and raise their questions. Sometimes people don't even follow up. That's why we even try sometimes to just break it and try to talk in local languages that people know like what we're talking about, because we don't have the time sometimes. Then I'll try to explain in Wolof and someone in Mandinka somehow. But just to draw the line here, I think what Sam is saying, he was saying that also all the time, which is also right. But in Mr. South's case, you can see that they have done that already, even before, because that's the hardest job they did, to go and even contact the people personally, you know, which we knew.
Even in the diaspora.
Yeah, we knew that. We knew that. We knew that. You know, that's what I'm trying to explain here. So, I mean, Sam's point is okay, but what you did is also a hard job, and you more or less did it. I think the problem we have here is not now the constitution, but we have other problems. You know, it's about the constitution, but not how it is made. These people, they did their job because that was a wonderful job. I have nothing to criticize. You know, thank you very much, Mr. So and your team. We know the job and what you did already. That's why it's very, how to call it, sad when I see that some people don't try to understand the whole book and try to politicize it. This has nothing to do with politics. Our last time I was talking about it, this thing is a very important document for Gambia, and Gambians should understand that, and that is not for you and me or Barrow or any other boy, but for Gambians. You know, that's where the problem is. Many people don't know the use of it. You know?
Yeah, and I think the biggest problem was because I have Gambian, I listen to a lot of online programs, and of course I'm on social media. I see so many comments from so many people, some very respectable. I think our biggest problem was a lot of people did not read the document. Because if people read the document along with the report, some of this stuff I keep hearing.
By the way, Gambian people don't read a lot.
You know,
that's our biggest problem.
That is this gap. That is this gap. Unfortunately, what some people use to convince also other people, because they know that they don't know much about it when they didn't read it. And that's why I say it's very dangerous to politicize with this important document of our country. So people who want to discuss, they should go through before they take any action.
Yeah.
Because what we tried to do, we had the 97 Constitution as our template. Whatever you have that is good in the 1997 Constitution, we did not change, we retained. And the only other thing, there were a few new things, other parts that were questionable, we made better.
They said that they said that you guys copy from Kenya's constitution. Is that a true statement?
Come on, we it's like let me tell you. South Africa had its constitution in 1996. At the time, that was commended as the best in the world. Kenya came, built on South Africa. If you look at Kenya's, you will see a lot of provisions that are based on South Africa's. And we had the benefit of having Kenya, South Africa, already very good. And we decided to build on that. I can close my eyes and tell you.
Okay. So you built on it. You guys didn't cut and paste, right?
Go to the Caribbean, you know, all the countries in the see the similarities. What to what? Compare our 1997 constitution with Ghana's, because the chairperson of our constitution drafting committee in 1996 was Ghanaian. You will see the similarities. And trying to make sure you have it contextualized. What is best for your people? What is best for, because nobody would say, oh, the CRC introduced a section that has no relevance to Gambia. Nobody would tell you about 15, 20 rights. The new constitutions have about 40, 50. And they would also tell you, South Africa's constitution 96 was very much influenced by Germany and India. Germany, India, the thinking influenced South Africa. So it was about, what do we have out there? How do we make it better? Not just better, how do we make it relevant to our people? From the first to the last section, nobody would say, oh yeah, this part is not important for Gambia. They just copied, pasted from Kenya. No, nobody would tell you that. Have you heard anybody say, this part of the constitution is not relevant, has no relevance to our local circumstances? No, nobody does that. So we have moved away from a time when, you know, it was all about US constitution to more modern constitutions, more progressive constitutions. And, you know, the way the world is now, you cannot just fool anyone. Place Kenya's constitution next to the US constitution, you will realize Kenya is much better, much more modern, way more modern. So just put them next to each other and then you can make up your mind. So at the end of the day, if we have to be influenced, why do we have to be influenced with a constitution that was drafted 200 years ago when we can get better, newer, fresher?
That's good. That's good. I was just you know, bringing that.
No, but look at, I can make reference to other laws. The criminal code of the Gambia was, the criminal code of the Gambia was adopted in 1933. What was it modeled on? Kenya's. Kenya modeled theirs on Nigeria. Nigeria modeled theirs on Queensland in Australia. If you pick up the constitution of, criminal code, which provides for the criminal laws of Australia, you know, compared to Nigeria, Uganda, Kenya, it's not even about similarities. In most instances, what to what? Nobody reinvents the wheel now. So we were not crazy enough to just cut paste.
I think those who didn't like some part of the constitution are the ones.
You just come up with an excuse.
I'm gonna move to Alice and Sam has given you a very a cake of it. Like for me, I'm gonna move in deeper, okay? Because you know you are my Ndoke, and then I have to. This is my opportunity to really hammer you from 1 to 5 in Armitage High School. So you know what time it is. Okay, Gay, you are my big boss, though. I still believe that. So the drafted constitution, the reason why it wasn't passed is because of the retroactive clause. We all know that. When you guys are drafting this, first of all, why it took long for this constitution to start? The moment the change came, this constitution should have fallen with you guys, and within the 3 years that the president was there, this constitution should have been done, so that it wouldn't be looked at as you guys are the retroactive clause is kind of hurting someone. Now that this president has enjoyed the 3 years and then surpassed that, thanks to the Gambian people allowing that to happen, the retroactive clause become the issue. That's why this thing hasn't been passed. Why would you guys why wouldn't you guys factor the retroactive clause? Is it that when you guys were doing this, you guys said that you were conditioned to say everybody, serving Gambia should be 2 term and it should start right now? Or do you guys also calculated that, hey, this president, shouldn't go, beyond, next time if he wins? I just want, what's the sense there? Because this become a problem, and we have this beautiful document, and it's not passing because of one thing. All the other things they agreed on, but this retroactive clause.
You have raised 2 things. One, time. I just want to, and the other is about the retroactive clause, justify, not justify, and I'll be happy to respond to both. But I wanted to say at the onset, time you can't, we didn't appoint ourselves. I don't work for government, the other commissioners too don't. We had the change in 2016, 17, but the CRC wasn't appointed until June 2018.
Oh my goodness.
So if seriously. So if we were appointed in 2017, and under the law, we were given a specific time. And the same law said if we couldn't finish within that time, we could ask for an extension. We did, but it was really very brief. It was good. We at least had the whole assignment exhausted within a reasonable time. We did our best. So not only did we go around the country, we went abroad. You will be surprised the number of submissions we made from all over the place. So we had to sit down to make sense of what we got. Not only did we do that, we drafted based on what we got. We had it rolled out, and we also requested for feedback from people on the zero draft. So at the end of the day, you can find out anywhere in the world to get a constitution done within the time we did. I'm not saying it did not happen, but for a process that democratic, for a process that consultative, for it to be done, finalized in a very qualitative way within the time we did, I'm not sure I can say that was a first, but even if it is not a first, it would be in the top 3 anywhere in the world. So I had no say on my appointment, the chairperson of our commission, all of us, we had no say. Like I told you, in fact, when the Bar Association wrote to me to tell me they wanted me to be one of the representatives of the bar, the emails are there. I told them I can only do it if it is not full time, because there was nowhere I was going to leave my job. I have a full-time job, the head of a Pan-African human rights organization. So when they told me it was going to be part-time, that was when I agreed to sign on. But of course, that in no way affected our calendar. So in a sense, with respect to the first one about the time, we did all that we could within that was why, we didn't ask for extension. We could have slowed it down to say we needed 3 years. We did it. Within the time we had, we were able to do, I think, for people to judge, what I thought was a great job. And on the retroactivity, I wanted to start by making one thing clear. There was no day ever, we had a meeting or we were on a retreat, we were drafting a particular clause, a day in which names came up. This wasn't about Gay Show. It wasn't about our chairperson. It wasn't about the president. It wasn't about the UDP. I can tell you personally, there are some parts of the Constitution I don't like. I can close my eyes and tell you about 6 I don't like, but it wasn't, but it wasn't the Constitution according to Gay Show or according to our chairperson, according to the commissioners. I mean, look at the clauses on dual nationality presidency. We had on the commission 2 people who had dual nationality, but that wasn't an issue. In my family, I have in my immediate family people who have dual nationals, including my own son. But that wasn't a consideration. So just trying to say, it really was never about, what the president wanted, what Momodu Sawane wanted, what Mr. So wanted. It was strictly speaking based on feedback we got. Nothing personal. You can look at the records. They're going to, I hope they make them public. And, I wouldn't, like I said, I left government about 16 years ago, and I'm not thinking of going back now. So what I'm saying in a sense is that was not a consideration. It wasn't about what would work for Mr. Sawane, what would work for Mr. So. It was about what would work for our people. And I can tell you one thing.
Yeah.
We went around the country. People spoke. People told us in Mandinka, Wolof, Fula, Jola, Sarahule, Aku, in all the languages. Because if you look at our issues document, we had that issue raised. Do we have to have limits, time limits in the Constitution? People will say yes.
Yes.
And when we went out, the CRC was divided into 2 groups. And in my group, I was lucky enough to make most of the, maybe 90–80% of the presentations on the executive. I did them myself. When we were in New York, when we were all over the US, I would tell people, hey, if you guys come in here to talk to us, don't just tell us we want time limits. We want you guys to tell us what you mean when you say time limits. Go to the videos, they're there. And I'll tell people, when you say time limits, do you want the Putin kind of time limits? Meaning, people can do 2 years, then come back. Or do you mean 3 times, 2 times? Please tell us for how long, and what should that look like? And people came out, and in all the languages in this country, all the way to the forest village, on the, for the Kunda, people said to us, and the records don't lie, the videos are there, they're there, people told us, ni moye sanjitangoke, amari nyanta tala, amari manyana nala, koteke, kuda fuki at, na dem, buguin ko gisat. People told us clearly. They didn't tell us in English, in all the local languages. So we had that in mind. And like I said, we didn't have any name in mind. When we came out to draft, look at our report, we had that on top of what we needed to draft, because we needed to draft a law, most important law in this country, which is the Constitution. And our instructions we got from the people. So we needed to capture what people told us, which was why we proceeded that way. It was never about, and guess what? We could have drafted 2 terms of 10, 5 years, 10 years. That's okay. But you don't leave a gray area when you draft somebody that important. We could have just said 2 terms. We stay quiet. And then at the end of the day, whether the present president's term would be covered, not covered, we leave to the courts. That was what happened in Senegal. I'm happy I'm not talking to, anybody who's not from Senegal. Your listeners, both of you. In Senegal, there is a documentary on Netflix. It's called Incorruptible. Because of that term thing, there were riots. People were killed. You know what it means in the Gambia when you file a case, how long it takes. The Yakumba Jaita case. In the UK, when there were challenges, it took less than a week for them to decide. Yakumba Jaita case, how many months did it take? So for the matter to go to the Supreme Court, I have utmost respect for our Supreme Court, but I can guarantee that that matter, whether the president's term should be counted, not counted, could be decided in about a week. Do you know how many people can be killed in about a week or in about a day? So we decided we were not going to be cowardly. Already we had information from our people telling us this was what we wanted. And guess what? We also looked around the world. How was this handled in other countries? Okay. Kenya, you said plagiarize. I'm referring you to Kenya. But if you look at Kenya's constitution, it made it clear those who were president before the constitution came into force were bad. Sorry,
That's okay.
Can you? Yeah. Sorry. Kenya said those who were president before the constitution came into force were bad. You cannot be president again when the constitution comes into force. Look at constitution of Kenya. Colombia too, they did the same. So we looked at international best practices and we said, this is how these countries have handled it. At the end of the day, what am I saying? People told us 10 years, not anymore. We looked around the world, people have handled it. So if you are faced with all that, what do? Do you chicken out, say, oh yeah, we're going to make sure we leave it blank for people to come out in the streets, money to die, or we leave it blank just to serve the interests of one person? Or do we go by what our people tell us? Or do you go by what had existed in other parts of the world? So what I'm saying is not made up. You know, in the US, you guys, because of Trump, they call alternative facts. There is no alternative fact. So yeah, fake news, alternative. All that I am saying, look at Colombia's, look at Kenya's, look at our report, the percentages. Gambians spoke out in Mandinka, in Fula, Jola, Wall of Sarahule, that 10 years, Amari Yeta, Manya Najela, Kotake Bugin Gisa, 10 years, not them mobile. So yes. How do you know, why would you? And it was never a day.
Something different.
Yes, and it wasn't about, oh, remember, this is what the president wants us to do. I don't work for government. Never did. I mean, I left government 16 years ago. And some of us, it's about our conscience.
Yeah. What I just wanted to say.
Yeah, Alice, just give me a few minutes. So it's good that you mentioned this because people were looking at the legality of retroactive laws. So people are saying that if you're making a law, it has to be done, after the fact, like not, like going back. But you mentioned that it's illegal because it has been done in other countries. That is clear to everyone. Gambia is not.
No. It being done in other countries doesn't make it legal.
Okay, so
let me explain.
Yes, it's been done in other countries. It's not making it legal, but Gambian people have spoken. But then
that doesn't make it legal for us.
Exactly, that hasn't make it. That has make it legal for you because Gambian people want it. Because Gambian people can want something and still not really doesn't look legal.
People have to understand one thing. When you talk about non-retroactivity, like I said, go online, do your own research. It comes into place. Or it comes in when we're talking about two specific things. We're talking about the criminal law. You cannot create a crime today, and then you have it backdated, as in saying it is criminal for anybody to go online, like we're doing now, and then you have it backdated to yesterday. Because when you did it yesterday, that was perfectly legal. So non-retroactivity wouldn't apply when it comes to criminality, the criminal law, creating crimes.
Okay.
Secondly, you talk about non-retroactivity when you're talking about human rights. A right is vested in Mr. Sawane and Mr. So. You cannot come up with a law taking away a right Mr. Sawane had yesterday. So non-retroactivity cannot apply when it comes to constitutionality, constitutional law. Let's make that clear. When we say non-retroactivity, like I told you, is about criminality, criminal law. Is also about a vested right. You cannot come up with a law today taking away a right Mr. Sawane had yesterday. Now let's come to the issue. I've heard people say left, right, and center discrimination. What right are we talking about? As in, is my right to be president of the Gambia for 15 years, for 20 years? Is that a human right? Is that a right? That doesn't make any sense. I hope you understand. So yes. We did, because there is nothing under our law barring us from doing what we did, because if it was bad under our law, we always would have that. Like I told you, the Constitution was our template. Whatever we did was guided by our laws. And when we knew this wasn't against our laws, we tried looking for inspiration elsewhere to reinforce our belief at the time.
Okay. Now, there is also this understanding that the age limit was, that one was in the old Constitution, 1997. but this one, it was removed. That has caused some people to question again, why wouldn't the age limit stay? If it, I mean, because people of our, and you can argue in the West, somebody can go up to 70 like Donald Trump and Joe Biden, but that doesn't apply to us. You know, somebody in the Gambia, or, you know, in Africa, 80 years, how efficient, how much, you know, efficiency as a leader can he brings on the table as compared to yourself and Alas and Sam? So why would you guys don't go with that? Is it because Gambian people just want that?
We didn't need to do that because at the end of the day, that is already changed in the current constitution. They removed the age limit, so we didn't need to do anything.
Oh yeah, so you guys didn't do that. So that has nothing to do with you guys. I remember that.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, but
and
you guys wouldn't you guys wouldn't even wanna even say, listen, we like that part. Why can't we bring that back?
No, it's not about
because those who took that age limit are few. They are not all Gambian. They haven't spoken for me.
No. Look at our report. We gave the stats, and it wasn't like I said earlier. It wasn't the constitution according to Gayshaw. There were about 1 or 2 instances where we departed from what majority of the people told us, and I can explain those. The first that comes to mind is about citizenship. If you look at our records, we made it clear majority of the people wanted automatic citizenship at birth, but we felt we needed to be scientific in our approach. If you say automatic citizenship to everybody born in the Gambia, looking at the time we had, we couldn't do a survey to get a sense of how many people we're talking about or how many they could be in 10, 15 years. So that was why we left that opening. We said we did not have all the information that will enable us make an informed decision. So we said we would leave it to the National Assembly. The National Assembly can do a study to say, for example, after 10 years, we will constitute a panel to look into the issue. We said Gambia is the second most densely populated country in West Africa after Nigeria. And because we had no idea whether we were talking about 1 million, 2 million people, if we were to say automatic citizenship, that would mean overnight our population could grow from 2 million to 4 million. We didn't want that. So we said, we're not closing the door. In the US, they call it a path to citizenship. Let's leave an opening for the National Assembly to come up with a law that will take care of this kind of people. So it wasn't about shutting anybody out, but we felt we did not have all the information. And for us to come up with a decision at the time would have been uninformed. So we decided we would leave that way. But other than that, for all the other parts, I think that is an order which I can remember on top of my head. But like that's about 98%. We went by what people told us.
Okay. Alas, you can come in. I mean, I have my question. I will save that for last. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Saul, for explaining deeply.
Thank
For
you,
me,
Mr.
I don't have much to ask. I can only thank them for their good job. And it's also very important to explain that to the Gambian people that this is not a personal thing. As I always used to say, even our last meeting here, I was saying that too, the constitution, the Gambians need to know that this is not for somebody, but for Gambians. Even the MPs or the presidents, or I don't know how you call them, you name them, they should understand that this is not for them, but for the Gambians. And I think you said this also somewhere. That's what the Gambians need to know. This is a book, a constitution. It should not be politicized. Or I myself, I heard a lot of things about you people. You didn't do it right. You didn't, because people don't understand it. But it's nice that you are here, try to make the air clear. But I knew it. I knew that you did a good job. And the way you did it was also very right. You ask every individual, some countries don't do that. So you were very near to the Gambians and try to get their opinion. That is not the case.
That's
what
right.
We are having here. We are having a problem. After you people doing your good job, the problem we have has nothing to do with you people, and everybody knows. We have to go forward with your good book, we call it, and that's where we are having this problem. And that is not your problem. You did a good job. For me, I don't have much questions. Only you, if you can clear the air more and tell the politicians to leave their hand from this book, because this is not for politics. This is not for me, for you, or Mr. So or Sawani or Barrow, or I don't know. This is what the Ghanaians need to understand. Because I said it here last time. If I told that everybody comes and say, I want it this way, when are we going to finish with this book? Because we all have our own interests. I said it here last time. Even the diasporans, there are certain things that is not good for the diasporans. But nobody said anything, because people understand it. That is for the Gambia, not for you and me. Anybody.
I need to clarify that.
Yeah.
There is a lot of misinformation as to how the diaspora are affected, and I don't need to emphasize.
Gay, I just wanna add that before you say that, people felt diasporas had been left out in this constitution.
No.
That is not.
I want to correct that.
Okay.
If you allow me, I will correct that. That's extremely wrong. The constitution is the draft. Sorry, is maybe I should start saying the dead draft is 100 times better. Yes, I think our biggest problem. A lot of us did not bother to read the draft. We just concentrate on third-party information, and we know there were so many people out there who really were doing their best to make sure the information was distorted. I'll explain. And this is not it's not something I'm making up. All that I am saying, you can confirm in the draft, and I will explain. If you look at the 1997 Constitution, and in fact, before I talk about that, I want to make a clarification. Dual nationality and diaspora are two different things. You can live in the US, which makes you a diaspora, but that doesn't make you a dual national. There are many Gambians living in the US, which makes them diaspora, but they don't have American citizenship. So they are not dual nationals.
Right, so but you can be vice versa, right?
No, there are also, let me explain. There are also many Gambians living in the Gambia who are not diaspora, but they're dual nationals. They have two passports. Yeah. So what I want us to remember, the restriction we have is not about diaspora, but about dual nationals. You can be local and dual national. You can also be, a diasporan and not a dual national at all. So if we agree that is the case, we can move on. If you look at the 1997 Constitution, if you have dual nationality, you cannot be appointed minister. We removed that. In the draft, as a dual national, you can be American. Mr. Sawane can be brought back, my friend here from Germany, and made minister. That's not possible under the 1997 Constitution. We removed that.
Okay.
If you look at the draft, to run for parliament, president, you have to satisfy what is called the residency requirement. We removed the residency. Even before I go there, if you have dual nationality, you cannot be a parliamentarian in the 1997 Constitution. We removed that.
Good.
I'm talking about things we've removed. If you have dual nationality, in fact, one thing we did, which is not in the 97 Constitution, we talked about ordinarily resident, but we did not just say you have to be ordinarily resident. We went ahead to have that defined. And in defining it, we relaxed the rules. And to be ordinarily resident, you just have to come to the Gambia once a year. So, which means, for as long as you're coming to the Gambia once a year, you have qualified the ordinary resident requirement. The only thing which we have in the 1997 Constitution, which we have not removed, is with respect to the office of president. We said, you cannot be a German Gambian, an American Gambian, and then become our president. That is not just unique to the Gambia. For God's sake,
No.
the most important office in this country, you want us to make you our president, and at the same time you're holding on to your American nationality or German nationality.
And
That
you'll be
doesn't happen.
2 days in Gambia, 2 days in Germany.
Exactly.
That's impressive.
Yeah, that's the only thing we retain. But other than that, every other restriction we deleted, we removed, or we relaxed. And it's not about Mr. So. Go into the draft and you will see exactly what I'm telling you. So
I used to say that.
Makes me want to cry if I hear people say this constitution is not favorable to diasporans.
So,
like now,
because
I have a question
some
on
will
that.
say this is just an example, because some will say maybe how it is now it doesn't favor them also, because we are human beings, we some like Benachin, some like so it's democracy, and they are free to say what
That's
they.
fine.
But it's just an example to tell everybody that whether we like it or not, whether it favors us or not personally, we have to respect one thing. This book is for the Gambians.
Yeah,
and for
but you have
nobody.
to compare Benachin with Benachin, not Benachin with Bahal.
Yeah. But I just mean we are human beings. You know us. What I like, you don't like it. So what I say it favors me, it doesn't favor you. So maybe they have.
I agree.
Yeah. So complaints, you always have something to complain. But I just want Gambians to understand that this doesn't mean that it should favor me or you or something like that. When you people have done already a good job and everything, we just all have to close our eyes and respect Gambia, not anybody, not president or anything. Gambia and what is going to take Gambia forward when you have your heart for Gambia. Because some people they used to say that, but they are more interested about their position, party, or I don't know what favors them, But when you have Gambia at heart, we accept it. Like it's very simple that the whole world is just watching us and laughing about how we try to go forward with this book.
That's a very good point. But I wanted to say, people have a right to criticize. People have a right to speak up.
But still, it doesn't. I know, but it should not.
Yeah.
That's why we were talking about freedom of speech. I say okay, but we need to understand that doesn't mean that I have to insult you. Criticism also must be only healthy, because we are human beings. Sometimes you have something what I like, sometimes what you don't like, but it's democracy. That's why
of course
democracy is very, very, very interesting sometimes.
But then we have to move away from distorting, in the sense, like I said, it's like day and night. The improvements are very obvious for everybody to see. So when you speak from a position of authority, knowing fully well what is in the 97 Constitution and whether what is in the draft is as good, worse off, or better. Clearly, you can compare. I saw somebody saying 1970 Constitution. You can compare it, even the 1970 with the 1997. The 1970 Constitution, before we started butchering it left, right, and center, was way more progressive than the 1970 Constitution, I would say, particularly when it comes to separation of powers. Seriously.
Yeah, Mr. So, there is one thing that I just want to bring out when it comes to this dual citizenship. And then Halifa Sallah had mentioned this in the parliament. Why a diasporan who is qualified and perhaps could be has the mindset to lead Gambia, a position of a presidency that uniquely you need unique leaders to bring change, and then Gambian have seen this, and that the person has a dual citizenship. Why would Gambian people forgo that opportunity just because that person is from Germany or somewhere else? And Alifa has answered this in a very nice way. He said those people should be allowed and then give an option. If they win an election, they can give up their other citizenship. You cannot say that just because somebody is a dual citizenship, the person who is not a dual citizenship loves Gambia more than that person. Yeah, and you people should have come with a way. If you are worried about having somebody holding two citizenship might favor the other opposite country, especially in the times of war, there are always a way. Like Khalifa said, it doesn't make sense. They should allow dual citizenship to run for presidency or any kind of position. At the same time, when they win, before the swearing ceremony or whatever, they must give their other citizenship. But it doesn't make sense for somebody to give their other citizenship and run and then lose an election, and then now he doesn't have that citizenship. Khalifa is, I'm telling you, why did this idea never raise among your group? I know you guys have done a wonderful job by making other areas, changing everything else, and you stopped to this one.
No, but Mr. Sawane, what you just said is about eating your cake and having it. You have to make up your mind at the end of the day. You know what they call in Wallop, kartala, you can't eat your cake and have it. Yeah. So, as they would say in Wallop, I wish I could get the Mandinka equivalent. So, Gambia mola nyor. As in, if Gambia is important enough to you, to the extent of you wanting to be the #1 citizen of that country, it's not always about what works for you. You have to, it's like a risk you should be able to take. We're not saying we cannot make you minister, but to be the #1 citizen, like they say in Wallop, Kartala, let's wait for him. Let's find out whether he's won, he's lost.
So do you have a requirement that you must born in Gambia to become a citizen, to become a president?
No. In our current law, we have what we call citizenship by descent, and of course citizenship by birth. Of course, we know you cannot be if you like a natural citizen. Sorry, if you are a naturalized citizen, like your kids. It's not like the U.S. where you have to be born in the U.S. to be president or something of that sort. Birth descent, that should be fine. But what I'm saying in a sense is, if Mr. Sawane feels so strongly that he wants to be the #1 citizen of this Gambia or of this country, why do we have to let him contest election, wait for him to wait before he can decide to renounce his American nationality? You have to make up your mind. It's a risk you should be able to take. We can't allow you sitting on the fence saying, oh, let me try this. Sit on the fence. If I make it, America, if you make it up your mind, #1,
like,
whether I should be,
Alas, remember that.
Gambia nyorud la, alas, kon Gambia nyorud ko.
Yeah, it's just like, I said that one of our meetings here, I said that, Mr. Saul, what you are saying exactly, because that's also my point of view. I cannot have one foot here in Germany and 1 foot in Gambia. And if I want to be the most, the #1, as you said it, then I should be ready to give up my citizenship. Because that is just showing you that you have Gambia at heart. So you are ready to risk everything for Gambia. And some people we need now for Gambia to go forward. Because, when you look the whole line, what we're seeing, many of these people, they are just after their interest there. Their way of behaving, and so you'll see that they are just for themselves there, not for Gambia.
Exactly.
Because if I want to bring a country forward, I'll be ready to sacrifice, and this sacrifice is not there. I used to say that. Last time I said it here too. All want to be a president, but how many of them want to go and work? You understand? We Gambians will always ask ourselves, why are we, all countries are moving forward and we are going backwards, and try to adjust and correct these problems in our society or our political arena, and I don't know how to call it. You know,
Okay.
I know that we have a lot of corrections to do. You know,
I
that's not
think
the
I
case.
think I think when Gambians in diaspora come to that bridge, they will know how to cross it. So
No, but
I
we're
will leave
Yeah,
that to
for
saying,
them.
right?
me, I
But
know.
do you know as we speak, you have to satisfy the residency requirement. We have no idea what that means under the 97 Constitution. As we speak, no matter how good you are, you cannot be appointed as minister. As we speak in the 1997 Constitution, we would have done away with all that
Yeah, no,
in
you
the
guys did a
draft.
wonderful job. Trust me. You guys
I
did
don't know
an
about how
awesome
wonderful.
job.
We tried our best.
You
No,
did a
no, no.
wonderful job on
For
that.
you people, nobody have something
We
to
tried.
say against you, because the problem we have is not you. You understand? The problem we have is not you. We have a
Um,
lot of problems.
I think they said the
No, thank you.
constitution is also very bulky. You know, it went into so many things that it is definitely be hard for Afro-Gambians to, you know, digest that information. Yeah, is that a correct statement?
We didn't want to make it an abstract document. Pick up the constitution of any French-speaking country. Always, a few pages. Because we want it to be as detailed as possible. Make sure all the feedback we got from people, we got the impression, going around the country, that a lot of our people had lost trust in their leaders, from land issues to good governance issues, a host of other things. So they expressed themselves, and we felt we really needed to make sure that was captured, And just compare the 97 Constitution with the draft, you would see how the language was made simpler. So it was about, not just being brief, because you really want people to read the Constitution in about an hour or two. It was about being as detailed as possible so that everybody from, somebody sitting in Swarakunda, somebody sitting in my village, somebody
Oh
sitting
man,
in
you still
Banjul.
remember
Of,
Swarakuna?
of course I do. You were classmates for 5 years. No, as in if you pick up the document you read, you will be able to see yourself in the document. Try to make it as detailed as possible. It was something every Gambian really needed to identify with. And we felt we really wouldn't be doing justice to all that we heard, all the information we got, if we just summarize, move on. No, we needed to be as detailed as possible. That was why we did that.
Okay.
Very good.
So
Thank you
we
very much.
have one person, a guest who just came in. I think he has a question, and then Sam. So we can
Uh,
wrap it up. Yep. You don't want to take too much of your time. Yeah, Mr. Sanya,
Yeah.
you can come in. Mr. Sanya, can you hear us?
Hello, Mr. Sayang.
Famara.
I think, Mr. Sayang, can you hear? You can give him the signal. Can you hear
Can you
us?
hear us? Can you come in?
No, no, he's saying no. Maybe he just want to listen.
Or
He
you just
doesn't
want
want
to
to
listen?
say
Okay.
anything. Yeah.
Sam, if you if you have something, so we can wrap up with Mr. Gay. We don't want to hold him up because we're gonna have more time with him next time, about some other areas. But we can. Sam.
Sam, welcome. Can you hear us? Oh, but you're having you mute, Sam.
You are mute. You are mute. We can't hear. We can't hear.
All right. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Now
Yes.
it's okay.
Okay. Sorry
I
about
can
that.
hear and see you.
Yeah, it's a bad signal area, of course, driving, and there's a lot of traffic delay in this area. So, but anyway, I know I missed some stuff, and I'll have to watch and listen to those when I get home and settle. But I do want to take this time to really thank Mr. Saul for all of his dedication and commitment to getting this done, to getting his job done, and really doing what he did, leading a team to restructure our Constitution. In other words, so Mr. Saul, thank you for all of that. Thank you so much. We really appreciate your time. And like I said, I missed some stuff, and I'll have to go back and listen to them. Until then, not much I can say. So thank you so much for your time.
Okay,
Thank you.
Sam.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you, Mr. Sam.
Drive
So
carefully.
I didn't lead the team. I was one of the commissioners, but thank you.
But
Thank you.
still
Thank
part
you.
of it.
So, Alas, if you have final words, because we promised Mr. So an hour.
Yeah, for me, I can only say thank you very much, Mr. So and all other people who helped to make it possible. You have done a good job. We have nothing to criticize or anything because we can only focus on the problem, and that has nothing to do with you. And thank you very much for your time. Thank you for explaining to make clarity in certain things. Many
Thank you.
Gambians don't have correct information and giving also wrong information. I think that is very good that people like you come and say something.
Yeah.
Thank you very much
Thank you.
for your time.
No, I think you've
Thank
seen
you.
something.
Appreciate it.
You're gonna say the final word, Mr. So, but I think you've seen something on the comment area. Some people say to bring back the 1997 Constitution, and perhaps now that this one is dead, perhaps kind of amend that, some clause in that to at least to get us, further. Maybe this one might come back, if, with another, regime or whatever. I mean, I love this Constitution. A lot of things, especially when it comes to accountability and transparency, which is and financial responsibility. That's the most I love. Beside the term limit, that's the most I love about this Constitution. So,
Thank
but
you.
if you have any, all those questions, you can see it on your screen. If you want to answer that, that's fine. But you have the final word.
Thank you, Mr. Sawane. Yeah, just what I've heard so many people say, instead of having a new constitution, all we needed to do was amend the 97 constitution. I wanted to clarify a few things. In the 1997 constitution, you have some provisions that are entrenched. When we say a provision is entrenched, that would mean to have it changed, you would have to have, in addition to the waiting period I mentioned, the 100-day period, in addition to that, you also would need to have a referendum. So if you look at all the provisions that are entrenched, from the provisions on fundamental rights, in fact, there is a part in the 97 Constitution that the AFPRC, the Military Council, made unamendable, as in saying, particularly the part that gives them immunity. We cannot even look into changing that. So in a sense, what I'm trying to say, to change the entering clauses, the process we have gone through with the draft, you would still need to go through, which means you would have the change, even if it is a comma you want to take out, a full stop you want to take out, a clause you want to take out from the provisions that are entering, you would have to have a first publication, wait for 90 days, second publication, wait for 10 days, go to the National Assembly, which is about 100 days, even after and when it gets to the National Assembly, just like they've done with the draft, you will have to have a first reading, 3/4 of National Assembly members would have to support, then second reading, 3/4 would have to support before it gets to committee stage, before it gets to the referendum stage. So in other words, why do you have to wait for 100 days? Second reading, first reading, 3/4 supporting. Second reading, 3/4 supporting. Referendum. In the referendum, 75% of people qualify, 50% of people qualified to vote must vote. And 75% of those who voted must support. Why do you have to go through all that process just to change one clause? When you can, instead of one clause, have a more comprehensive approach, an approach that will make sure not only is one clause changed, but probably 100 other clauses, not just changed, but made better. And of course, few other things introduced. So in a sense, what I'm trying to say, it is not as easy as people are saying. Let's just change what we don't want in the 97 Constitution. There are some things we don't want in the 1997 Constitution, and unfortunately, they are entrenched. And for us to change them, all that we have gone through with the draft, we have to go through. Why do we have to spend all that time, all the resources, just to change a clause, when we could use the same time, resources, to make the document a better document? So I wouldn't say that bit about just amending the 1997 Constitution is a valid argument. In fact, people can go to court and say, why are you going to change this when the same Constitution says these parts are unamendable? But if we were to have a referendum, bring a new Constitution, then it will be the 1996 referendum versus the new referendum we're going to have. Who are you to say the 1996 referendum is superior to the one we're going to have? So I'm not sure this piecemeal approach would have solved our problem.
Yeah,
I definitely wouldn't say that.
I'm glad you clarify. I'm glad you clarified this. I think this is what Gambian people don't know. What you've just made makes so much sense to have this draft constitution, and I think some of the parliamentarians don't even know, because I hear Halifa saying that why can't we just amend, like 1997 constitution in front of the in the parliament floor. So I think people are not knowledgeable. Our problem in Gambia is we don't have the right information, and the right information are not communicated to the grassroots level, to the local level. That's why we have so many problems. But what you just explained makes so much sense, that we need to spend this much money.
Let me make it simple. Why do I have to spend $1 million to get 10 when I can spend the same $1 million and get 100?
Yeah, that is this mentality problem. You know it, Mr. So and Sawane. They used to say, if you buy something because it's cheap, you don't look how long it will hold. It's cheap at that moment, but maybe it's not cheap, because if it is not very guaranteed, maybe after 2 months you have to go and spend the same money again. The third year, the same thing. So at the end of the day, you are about how many millions down there, than to just pay maybe one time 400, and that will serve you the same time 100 years. I mean, that is this mentality in our society. I know, because we always talk about poverty, where Gambia is not poor. We just don't know how to use our resources. But we say poor. People are poor. You look at people are poor because they cannot understand why, and it's there. So that's where we have this mentality, to buy 1,000 times saying it's cheap, than to put one amount and it will hold you for 100 years. That's where Germans think different. That's why they look, even if a price is cheap, sometimes they look suspicious, because they know that good things, they cost something. So, and they would like to buy it and then keep it for 10 years. Some people will have their jeans for 15 years. Yeah, because that's how they invest.
I can agree more with you. Seriously, you're very right.
Yeah, I think, yeah, I think you guys are right. I think somebody's on the phone, but we're gonna wrap it up. Jay, so do you think that this constitution will be passed? I mean, will be bring back? It's dead already. And what is the way forward? With us now.
You just answered your question. When something dies or somebody dies, you can revive it, no matter how good you are with logos.
So what is the way forward for Gambia? I don't know. What is the way forward?
I don't know. To be honest, I don't know. Probably the political actors need to have a proper conversation. To be honest, personally, I think the government went very public too soon. I would have preferred, private meetings with all the stakeholders to see if you could help iron out their differences before you go public.
Exactly.
That's what I would have preferred. But at the end of the day, when you go so public too soon, people you can tell are very entrenched in their positions. So probably private meetings, face-to-face meetings with the biggest stakeholders would have helped in, softening whatever their stands are, or probably making the ground level. I don't know. Maybe they were surprised by the backlash that came with the rejection, and they needed to be seen as doing something so soon, so quick. But I think the way everything was handled leaves a lot to be desired. They could have done better. That's my honest opinion, as Gay said.
So we are back to square one. We are back to square one, correct?
No, it's still there, but I cannot say it's dead. But for this year, I can only assure you that we cannot make it anymore, because I told you here the last time, the time frame is not given. We cannot. They should be happy when they do this time the election correctly. So when we should have referendum also this year, you can forget it. The IAC cannot afford that. So that means theoretically it's out. It's not dead, but it's dead. So anybody who comes after the election can decide whether it's dead or take it seriously. That's how I see it.
Before Mr. Sawane comes in, I wanted to ask you, your viewers, a question. People make all these assumptions. But at the end of the day, do we sit down to ask ourselves whether our country is ready for the change we desire? That's what I would leave with your audience. Are we ready for that change?
Right.
I think
it's
they
not
are.
about the change, according to Mr. Sawane.
I think that's a very good question. Are we ready? Because if we are ready, do we have the opportunity?
All these differences would have been very easy to deal with. Are we ready to take that turn? Are we ready? New Gambia, New Gambia. Are we all ready for the New Gambia?
Right.
I have an something.
I think someone to come.
Can you hear me?
You're breaking.
Can you guys hear me?
You're breaking. Yes, the signal, I think.
Oh, signal. Yeah. How about now?
Yeah, it's a little bit better. Yeah.
And what I want to say is really, we need to put this draft constitution aside, knowing where we are now with it. Put it aside. Let's go through December elections. After December elections, we will have parliamentary elections in the new year. After all of that, then at that point, we'll have a new president and a new National Assembly. I think that's when they need to start all over. Maybe not necessarily all over, but be able to put pieces together and come up with a new draft constitution before the 2026 election. Yeah. At this point, we can only go with the 1997 Constitution that's in existence and vote based on a simple majority and select a new president in 2021 of this year, of course, December of this year, and then just take it from there. Yep.
Yeah, but the thing is, right now nobody can even tell you whose advantage is it or not, because they are just making stress, I used to say, for nothing. Who knows that he will be the president of the Gambia right now? Nobody. So sometimes you are fighting for something what is not for you. So I think I can only tell you that we cannot make it now, even if it is changeable. The time limit, we don't have it. Very short though, but it's okay. I mean, who that is going to favor, we'll say it after December, or not.
Well, yeah, because a constitution is a constitution. It really doesn't matter who it favors. It's for the future of our country. Since we have the 1997 Constitution right now, and we can't change, we can't bring this new one in. And since it's dead, we don't have a whole lot of choices. There's not enough time to make any changes at this point to bring anything into effect. So our only choice is we go with the 1997 Constitution and vote and then go from there.
Yeah, right now, yeah. But the other one is not dead. I mean, it's just in coma, but it is going to, we need it, and we don't need to make any new one.
Mr. So said is dead. Mr. So said is dead. He cannot bring back.
No, I did not say that.
You said that Mr. Sawane is dead, but it's not dead because we should not allow it to be dead. Look, a poor country like Gambia, how can we just we saying we are poor? How can we just take 116 millions and just playing with it? That's where Gambians should wake up.
Right, but I
this is not a joke.
Mr. So answered that question. He said that we could have all this negotiation happening should have happened before it comes.
I know.
Hello, can I come in?
Yeah. You have a few minutes. We are wrapping it up. Yeah, we were asking you before. Yeah.
Let him in.
Go ahead.
Okay. Firstly, I want to thank the Honorable Guest, Mr. J. So, for that brilliant analysis of the draft constitution in comparison with the 1997 constitution. These two instruments are never comparable when it comes to progressive nature of a draft constitution. Okay, you've talked about the Public Order Act, and then, to my surprise, these people, they've made a tremendous job. This is the first of its kind. The Gambian constitution is drafted in such a manner where they reach a lot of Gambians, both home and abroad, and then, reach a lot of groups like like he said, focus group, they made a survey, and then you also talk about retroactive, clause. And then, many people are trying to obey, they're trying to, criticize these experts, these 11 experts, because yesterday I was going through a Facebook, somebody was just, mentioning that the blame has to be put on these, experts. When I listen to Mr. Soul, definitely there is no biasness in them. And then, when it comes to, dual citizenship or whatever, there's no bias, there's no discrimination. When they were drafting this, they drafted with open mind, and then, very, very consultative, Definitely, because there is no time, I've listened to the program, and then I would say this program is very informative and educative. I leave it here until I want to congratulate all the panelists and the host too.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Next time we get you earlier.
Thank you, sir.
I will send you the link,
Thank
and
you.
so you can comment. Yeah. So, Mr. So, final words. I mean, I believe we're good to go.
I mean, thank you. Just to thank you and Mr. Alas for
thank you very
having
much.
me. It's our country. You can call
Sam also is Sam also is part of our panelists. So he's just on the card today.
He's today on the way.
Yeah.
Sam too. There is a thing that binds us together other than our humanity, which is the fact that we all Gambian. So it's always an honor, a pleasure when you invited to, this kind of, forums to really talk about our country. We're struggling, developing, but at the end of the day, we have potential. We can do better if we all put our hands together and, of course, put our country first. I'm sure we'll all do perfectly well. I feel honored being invited here, and I think this really was a very good exchange. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And I can tell you, Mr. So, we are very proud of you. Being that I know you for so long and then introduce you to this group. We would like to have you more in legal areas, beside the constitution, some other things if we, feel it necessary. But definitely you have explained, I've learned so much today that I never learned before. Thanks to you, and then, the panelists. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes
thank you, and fellow panelists for having
journalists to take their time to do a favor for Gambians, people like Mr. So, to go sometimes and try to have the real fact from them with picture and then post it to the public so that people know what exactly is happening. You understand?
That's right.
Because speculation comes from lack of information. And that's what we have to avoid in the Gambia. Because at the end, you have only the false information.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Sam.
You take care. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye. Bye-bye, guys.
All right. Mbawara, thank you.
Thank you, Sam.
All right. Thank you, Sam.
Okay, guys. So